If you're here listening, subscribe. It's the only way I know you want me to keep talking. I'm Selene, and sometimes the smallest thing in the world feels heavier than it should. That morning, it was a plain white envelope. No return address, no stamp. Just my name, written in a careful, almost deliberate hand I didn't recognize. It lay on my doormat, like it had been waiting. And the strange thing, I hadn't heard anyone at the door. No footsteps on the stairs, no shadow under the crack. Just there. I bent down slowly, as if touching it too quickly might change what it was. The paper was thick, smooth, the kind you don't find in corner shops. Someone had chosen it for a reason. The weight felt wrong for a letter. Lighter than I expected. Not empty, but not heavy enough for words. I closed my door before opening it, maybe because I didn't want my hallway to see what was inside. A single photograph slid out. No note, no explanation. My parents, years younger, standing in front of a building I'd never seen in my life. They looked happy, not just polite for the camera happy, but genuinely smiling at someone just out of frame. That kind of smile people save for moments they think they'll remember forever. The sunlight in the picture was sharp, almost too bright. My mother's hair caught it in a way I'd never noticed before, like strands of gold trying to escape her. And my father? He was wearing a jacket I was sure I'd never seen before. A heavy wool coat, dark blue, with brass buttons. It didn't fit with the versions of him I knew. I sat down right there, on the hallway floor, my back against the door, the envelope resting on my knee, like it might answer a question if I stared long enough. The background was odd. A tall, narrow building, painted a deep green, with windows framed in crisp white. The paint was old enough to crack, but stubborn enough to hold on. Above the door, a sign, half in shadow, half worn away. Just 3 visible letters. I traced my finger along the edge of the photo. No writing on the back. No date, no fingerprints I could see. For a second, I thought about calling my mother, asking, pretending I'd found it in a box somewhere. But the way they were angled, leaning slightly toward whoever was holding the camera, stopped me. This smile wasn't meant for me. I slipped the photo back into the envelope. That's when I noticed it, a faint crease in the corner, like it had been folded and unfolded more than once. Someone had handled this before me. Someone who cared enough to keep it, or someone who wanted to pass it on. I set it on the kitchen table and tried to make coffee. The kettle's click felt too sharp in the quiet. The spoon tapping against the mug echoed like I was in a bigger room than I remembered. I told myself it was nothing, but my hands didn't believe me. They kept brushing over the paper, over my name written in ink that had bled just a little into the fibers. I tried to work, but my eyes kept drifting back to the envelope. It didn't belong to the rest of my day. It didn't belong anywhere, really. By the time the coffee cooled, I knew 2 things. First, I wouldn't throw it away. Second, whoever sent it didn't want to be found. The only question was, why send it to me at all? I told myself to leave it alone until after work. I didn't. I made a second coffee I didn't need and set the envelope on the table like a guest I wasn't ready to introduce to the rest of the house. The photo slid out more easily this time, as if repetition had taught the paper how to behave. Details first. Always details. The building. Tall, narrow, stubbornly green, white window frames with a thin bevel, the kind you only see when paint and patience have shared a long life. Above the door, a half-erased sign, 3 letters visible if I squinted. Maybe A, R, and something like O or D. The font wasn't modern. Sharp edges, no friendliness. I checked the edges of the photo. A faint pressure line near the bottom border, as if someone had once pressed a pen there, then thought better of it. No writing on the back, no date stamp. Whoever printed this didn't want to be thanked. My parents in the middle of it all, my mother's hand resting on my father's arm, both smiling at someone just out of frame. The kind of smile you don't fake. I tried to place the season, coats, but not heavy, no visible breath, low sun stretching shadows thin. I tilted the photo toward the light. In the glass of the green door, a faint reflection. A shoulder, a sleeve, a watch catching the sun. The time, maybe 11:07. I set the picture down and opened my laptop. Searches. The letters I saw, plus, green facade, white trim, old sign. Dozens of near matches. None right. I scanned the photo, pushed the contrast. Overexposure revealed a torn poster near the base of the door, saying closed Tuesdays, and since 19, the last 2 numbers gone. I sent Maya a cropped image. Architectural style? Guess the decade? She replied, frames late 20th, bevel's older, don't go detective without me. I'm just looking, I typed. She sent back a skull and a heart. I pulled out the family albums. Birthdays, trips, midnight kitchens, my parents in every kind of light. But no green building, no white trim, no brass buttons on my father's coat, no smiles aimed past the camera. The envelope had a faint, dark smudge inside, like a thumbprint from an old book. I brought it to my nose, a hint of cologne I didn't know. Back to the picture, near the doorframe, something metallic. Zoomed in until the pixels fell apart, maybe a plaque. 2 numbers, 47, 17, or scratches. I ran a pencil softly across the back. Graphite caught on a shallow groove, like an arc, like the start of a letter C or G. I laid the photo flat again. Left edge, a lamppost sticker. Black square, white diagonal. Not a brand I knew, probably local. Time was slipping. I slid the photo back into the envelope. Something caught. A second piece of paper, thin and nearly invisible, stuck to the back. A receipt. Years old, faded to near transparency. No store name, just numbers. 1 line. Copy 1. And a date. Not when the picture was taken, when it was duplicated. Last month. I stood in the doorway, the receipt in one hand, the envelope in the other. Someone had this. Someone made a copy. Someone chose now. I put everything back and left for work, pretending my keys were the loudest sound in the hall. They weren't. Work was supposed to be my distraction. It wasn't. Every line I drew, every measure I calculated, the envelope sat in the back of my mind like an unanswered question. My inbox filled, deadlines shifted, but all I could see was green paint, white trim, and my parents' faces turned toward someone else. By lunch, I'd given up pretending. I pulled the envelope from my bag and set it beside my coffee. The cafe's chatter faded to background static as I took the photo out again. A man at the next table glanced at it, then back at me, not curious enough to ask, or maybe too polite. I angled the picture toward myself. The building's shadow stretched across a cobblestone street. Cobblestones meant age, or someone trying to look old. On the far left, just beyond my father's shoulder, a shape that could have been a narrow alley. I'd seen that kind of street before, in certain parts of the city, in towns that barely changed. I opened a map app, zoomed into neighborhoods where old buildings still stood, searched for green facades. Too many. Searched for street views with lampposts and stickers. Too few. Maya called. "Still working?" she asked. "Trying," I said. "You sound like you're lying. Only to keep you from skipping your own job." She laughed. "Send me the whole picture, not just the doorway." I hesitated, then sent it. Her reply came quick. "That's not here." "What do you mean?" "Not in the city. Look at the light. Look at the street width. You'd know if it was local." She was right. My chest tightened. If it wasn't here, it meant someone had gone out of their way to bring it to me. I flipped the photo over again. Still blank, still silent. The receipt's date sat in my memory like a stone. Last month. I pictured someone standing at a copier, feeding the original into the machine, hearing it hum to life, deciding whether to send it or not. The question wasn't just who, it was why now. I searched the letters on the sign again. This time I added the word in. Half of the results were bed and breakfasts in places I had never heard of. A notification popped up. A message from an unknown number. "You won't find it online." I froze. The timing felt surgical. I typed back before I could overthink it. "Who is this?" No dots. No answer. I sent another. "How do you know about the photo?" Still nothing. Maya texted, "What's wrong?" I almost told her. Then I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I tucked the envelope back into my bag and left the cafe. The air outside felt colder than when I'd gone in. On the walk back to the office, I kept thinking I heard footsteps behind me. Not close, not chasing, just matching. At the next corner, I turned suddenly. A man in a dark coat slowed, then crossed the street without looking at me. Maybe coincidence? Maybe not. I told myself I was imagining it, but the feeling stayed until I reached my desk. That evening, I put the envelope on my nightstand. I thought I'd fall asleep staring at it, but sometime after midnight, I woke to find it on the floor. I didn't remember knocking it over. I picked it up. The flap was still sealed, but the photo inside was upside down, and I was sure I hadn't left it that way. I didn't touch the envelope again that night, but sleep was a door that refused to stay closed. By morning, the photo had taken root in my thoughts so deeply that even the sound of the kettle made me think of the faint click in the copier that had made its duplicate. I drank coffee without tasting it, scrolling through searches that gave me nothing but near misses. The 3 letters on the sign became my obsession. ARO, ARD. I tested every vowel, every consonant. I wrote them in my notebook like they were a code that might solve itself if I looked long enough. At lunch, I walked past the photography shop near my office. Old place, dusty windows, the kind of store that repairs cameras no one else will touch. Something in me decided to go in. The man behind the counter looked like he'd been part of the shop longer than the walls. He wore a cardigan the color of tea, glasses thick enough to make his eyes seem gentle. "Do you do copies of old photographs?" I asked. He nodded. "Careful work, not cheap." I slid the envelope across the counter. "Would you know if this was printed here?" He took out the photo and studied it without comment, tilted it, held it to the light. "No," he said finally. "Not my paper, not my ink. Whoever did this, they used a good printer, kept the texture close to the original." "The original?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "Oh, this is a copy. See here?" He pointed to a barely there line near the border. "That's where the scanner met the glass. Originals don't have that." I nodded, like I understood more than I did. "Could you tell how old the original is?" "Not without it in my hands. But this," he tapped the photo, "this was made recently. Very recently." "How recently?" "Month, maybe less." I thanked him and left, the bell above the door sounding too bright. Outside, the street seemed narrower than I remembered, as if the buildings had leaned in. I kept my hand in my coat pocket, feeling the envelope like it might vanish if I didn't keep hold of it. Back at my desk, I couldn't focus. My cursor blinked in the empty document like it was tapping its foot. Finally, I pulled out the photo and stared at it again. The alley beside the green building caught my attention. I'd dismissed it before, but now I zoomed in. On the far wall, a painted symbol, faded, maybe graffiti, maybe something else. 2 intersecting lines inside a circle. I searched for it. Hours later, one result made me sit up. An old travel blog, half broken, with photos from a small coastal town 3 hours away. In one of them, a building with similar trim, not green, but the same symbol on a wall. I checked the map. The town had fewer than 2,000 residents, a place where news traveled faster than cars. That night, I called Maya. "What's going on this weekend?" "I think I found something. I need a second set of eyes." There was a pause. "Selene, is this about that picture?" "Yes." She sighed, but it wasn't annoyance. "Send me the address." After the call, I looked at the photo one last time before sliding it back into the envelope. I'd made my choice. But as I turned off the light, I noticed something I hadn't before. On the back of the envelope, in the faintest pencil marks, almost erased, 2 words: "Don't trust." By Friday, the envelope never left my bag. Not because I needed it near me, but because I didn't want it alone. Maya met me outside the station early Saturday morning. She had that look she gets when she's trying to seem casual, but has already decided this is an adventure. Coffee in one hand, her old film camera slung across her chest. "So," she said, "coastal town, 3 hours away, mysterious green building that might not be green anymore. Am I dressed right for disappointment?" I smirked. "Layers, just in case." The train ride felt longer than it should. She spent most of it scrolling through the photo on her phone, zooming in on corners I'd already examined 100 times. "You're sure about this graffiti symbol?" she asked. "No," I admitted, "but it's the first thing that hasn't been a dead end." We arrived just after noon. The station was small, almost empty. The air smelled faintly of salt and something older, like wood that had seen too many winters. Walking through the main street felt like stepping into a slowed-down version of reality. Narrow shop fronts, signs hand-painted decades ago, people who noticed you twice before looking away. We headed toward the address from the blog. When we turned the corner, my stomach tightened. The building was there, the proportions, the windows, but the paint was now a dull gray. The trim was still white. The symbol was still faintly visible on the wall down the alley. Maya pulled out her camera and started taking shots. "Same structure," she said, "but This isn't the place in the photo. She was right. The photo had sharper light, brighter tones. This street felt quieter, like it had given up on drawing attention. We walked around the block looking for another angle. That's when I saw it. A small antique shop across the street. Its display was cluttered with postcards, old glass bottles, and faded photographs. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the sweet smell of aged paper. Behind the counter, an older woman in a navy sweater looked up. "Help you find something?" she asked. I hesitated, then took out the envelope and slid the photo toward her. "Have you seen this building before?" She studied it for a long moment. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Not in years," she said finally. "It used to be down by the waterfront. Paint was green back then." My pulse picked up. "What happened to it?" She shrugged. "Sold, stripped, moved. People change a place to make it theirs." "Do you know who owned it?" Her gaze flicked to the door, then back to me. "Why do you want to know?" Before I could answer, Maya spoke. "We're working on a personal project, history of old buildings." The woman didn't look convinced. She pushed the photo back toward me. "You should be careful asking about that place. Some histories don't want to be found." Her tone made my skin prickle. "Why not?" I asked. She shook her head. "Best if you leave it alone." We thanked her and stepped outside. Maya's eyebrows were raised almost to her hairline. "Okay," she said. "Now I'm interested." We walked toward the waterfront, following her directions. The air grew colder, wind sharper. At the edge of the pier, we found it. The green building from the photo, only now stripped of its color. Windows boarded on the second floor. I stood there, trying to imagine my parents in this exact spot, years earlier, smiling for someone that wasn't me. A gull screamed overhead, sharp and sudden, and from somewhere behind one of the boarded windows, I thought I heard it, the faint, deliberate click of a camera shutter. The sound could have been the building settling. It could have been the wind. But my body had already decided it was a shutter. Maya heard it too. "Tell me that was a gull," she said, not taking her eyes off the second floor boards. We waited. Nothing. The water slapped the pier. We circled the building. Up close, the paint was stripped to a quiet gray that remembered being green. On the doorframe, a dull brass rectangle. Maya rubbed it with her sleeve until numbers surfaced. 47. I thought of the blurred plaque in the photo, of the way the receipt had said copy-1. My stomach made a small, useless fist. An alley ran along the side. The symbol from the blog was still there, faded into brick. 2 lines in a circle. The boards on the first floor window had fresh screws. The smell was sharp, not paint. Maya sniffed once. She said, "Fixer, old darkroom chemical." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Don't look up." So I did. A strip of fabric lifted behind one of the boards, then fell. Not enough to see through, just enough to feel seen. "We should go around front," Maya said, but she didn't move. The alley's mouth held a shape for a second, a man in a cap, then released it. A mail slot at waist height. I slid 2 fingers in and felt paper. It caught, then gave. A glossy scrap tore free, a fragment of a larger print. 2 clasped hands, a coat sleeve with a brass button. The same texture as our photograph. "Someone's printing in there," Maya murmured, "or sorting old prints." She studied the torn edge, not careful. Footsteps approached, heavy, deliberate. We stepped into the angle of the alley as an older man came around the corner, keys heavy on his belt. "This side's closed," he said, not unkindly. He looked at Maya's camera, then my envelope. "You two collecting stories or making them?" "I'm trying to match one," I said, and showed him the picture. He held it with the easy hands of someone who handles paper. "Arcadia," he said, tapping the ghost of letters above the door. Arcadia boarding house. Sign came down when they moved the place. Moved? Maya asked. Storm took the old foundation 8 years back. They jacked it up and set it farther inland. Lost the color, kept the bones. He handed the photo back. Closed Tuesdays. That was the joke. It was never open on Tuesdays because the owner liked to fish. I remembered the poster in our picture. Closed Tuesdays. Do you know who owned it? I asked. Which then? He asked. Houses live many lives. He chewed the inside of his cheek. Old records are at the library. Microfilm reader that hates everybody. If you're lucky, you'll find ads. If you're unlucky, you'll find nothing and think that's the answer. Has anyone else been asking? He looked toward the water. Last month, a woman with a folder full of copies said she was doing a family archive. Wore a watch that flashed when she turned her wrist. Frowned. Smelled like old paper. My phone buzzed. You're early. I typed back, for what? No dots. He said, libraries open another hour, if you hurry. He lifted his keys and the boards answered with a small complaint. Stay out of the alley after dark. Because it's dangerous? I asked. Because it keeps secrets. We climbed the hill. The library sat under pines and smelled like books that had learned quiet. The microfilm room hummed. Maya fed a roll in with careful fingers. I scanned headlines, boat schedules, classifieds, notices. There it was. Arcadia rooms since 1923, closed Tuesdays. A font with too much confidence. Below, a promotional photograph. The building in its green prime, trim, bright as teeth. At the edge of the frame, a couple with their backs to the camera, hand on elbow. Selene, Maya said. Look. In the same issue, a wedding notice from decades earlier. The names meant nothing to me. The pose, the lean towards someone just out of frame, was the same choreography as our parents' photo. Like the room had taught people how to stand. I printed the ad. The machine spat warm paper. In the margin, a gray line, like a tired fingerprint. We stepped outside just before closing. Dust gathered. I held the print next to our photo. The fonts matched. The boast matched. The date underlined the thing I didn't want to admit. This story had been rehearsed for a long time. Across the street, a window turned reflective. In it, 2 women leaned over paper. Behind them, a figure lifted a phone and took a picture. I didn't turn around. We're being watched, I said. Maya didn't turn either. I know, she said. Smile for the archive. We walked toward the station like we belonged to the evening. Not hurried, not slow, just moving. Maya kept the folded print in her coat pocket, her hand over it like a guard. I carried the envelope in mine, thumb pressed against the flap. Every shop window we passed turned to a mirror, giving us our own reflection, and the same dark coat at a steady distance behind. He's not pretending, Maya murmured. No, I said. He wants us to notice. We turned down a narrower street. The smell of fried fish floated from somewhere nearby. Neon signs buzzed half-heartedly. The man's reflection in a storefront stopped, then shifted into shadow. At the corner, Maya pulled me into a bakery that looked like it had been old before we were born. We bought bread we didn't need, waited until the street outside changed its rhythm, then stepped back into the night. The man was gone, or had decided not to be seen. At the station, we found a bench in the far corner. The platform lights hummed. Maya took out the print and set it between us. Arcadia rooms, she said, tapping the bold letters, since 1923. Closed Tuesdays. Your parents in front of it, smiling at someone else. A stranger warning you not to trust. A woman with copies. And now, she gestured to the shadow that had followed us. An audience. The train came. We sat side by side, the rhythm of the tracks too loud to talk over. Somewhere between towns, I checked my phone. Another message from the unknown number. You're getting closer. I typed back, to what? No answer. When we reached the city, Maya offered to walk me home. I said no. She didn't like it, but she let me go. My apartment felt different the second I opened the door. Not wrong exactly, but altered, like a chair moved a few inches when you weren't looking. I locked the door, turned on the light. The envelope was still in my coat pocket. I took it out, set it on the table, and froze. The flap was open. I hadn't opened it since leaving the station. Inside, the photograph was still there, but the receipt was gone. A knock at the door made my breath catch. 3 short taps, evenly spaced. I moved to the pier hole. The hallway was empty. Another knock. This time from behind me. The sound came from my bedroom door, closed, though I had left it open that morning. I stepped back. My phone buzzed in my hand. Leave it where you found it. I didn't type, didn't move. The bedroom door stayed closed. The silence after the message felt thicker than noise. Slowly, I walked to the envelope, slid the photograph back inside, and placed it on the floor by the door. My fingers lingered on it a second too long before I pulled them away. I waited. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. The bedroom door stayed closed. The envelope stayed where I'd left it. Finally, I picked it up again. Light, just as before. Inside, not only the photograph, but a new slip of paper. Half the size of the receipt, handwritten in the same deliberate style as my name on the envelope. 4 words. You're not the first. The note was small enough to lose, heavy enough not to. You're not the first. I stared at it longer than I should have, tracing the careful letters. Same hand as my name on the envelope. Deliberate, almost neat, with a tremor at the end of the T. Someone wanted me to feel the human part of this. I sent a photo of it to Maya. Seconds later, she called. Added how? I said, either someone walked into my apartment or the door knocks by itself. I'm coming over, she said, and hung up. When she arrived, we checked every lock, every window. Nothing forced. The bedroom door, the one that had been closed, stood open now, like it had been that morning. Leave the envelope where they can get to it, she said. She set her phone to record and placed it behind a plant near the door. If they come back, I want to see how. We pretended to watch a movie. At 1:14 a.m., something slid under the door. A faint scrape of paper on wood. We didn't move. When the sound stopped, I got up. A torn piece of a tourist map lay inside. A red circle marked the hill above Arcadia. On the back, 2 letters in pencil, T-U, underlined twice. Under the map was a brass key worn smooth. The tag read 47. My phone buzzed. Bring only the original. I typed, I don't have it. A pause, then, bring what you were given. We rewatched the footage. The paper slid in. No hand, no shadow, just absence, moving with purpose. This is practiced, Maya said. Or theatrical, maybe both. Sleep didn't come. At 7:02, my phone lit up with another message. Don't trust. Same words faintly penciled on my envelope, now in clean digital text. No number. We decided to move in daylight. First the hill, then the door that matched 47. Before leaving, I called my mother. Did you ever stay somewhere called Arcadia? Green building, white trim? A pause. We drove through a town with that name. Why? I found an old photo, you and Dad, smiling at someone off camera. She laughed softly. That was a lifetime ago. Whose? I asked. Ours, she said. I'll call later. On the sidewalk, my neighbor waved me over. She held a thin, unsealed envelope. She said a boy in a cap left it, said it's for the girl with the careful eyes. Inside was a page torn from a guest ledger. No hotel name. 3 lines. 2s, SV 247, 2's EV 117, 2's S 147. Two people, Maya said, pointing to the first, could be your parents. And the last one? I asked. Only one person, she said. Same room number. Beneath the entries, in faded pencil, bring the original. We looked at the brass key in my palm. The morning felt smaller. Then my phone buzzed once more. No number, just a line that didn't need to be a question. See you Tuesday. Tuesday was 3 days away. 3 days is nothing, and it's enough to imagine every wrong thing that could happen. Maya insisted we prepare. If you walk into this cold, you'll miss what matters, she said. She drew a rough map of Arcadia from memory, circling the hill. High ground means sightlines and hiding places. We spent the next 2 days digging. Public records first, property transfers, old permits. Arcadia boarding house had changed hands 3 times in 40 years. One sale matched the year my parents would have been there. The buyer's name meant nothing, but the address on the deed was the same as the antique shop we'd visited. Your friendly warning lady. She knew more than she gave. The second night, I searched guest registries. Most years were boring lists of traveling salesmen and honeymoon couples. Then, scattered across decades, the same pattern. TUE in the date column, 47 in the room column, and initials that never repeated. Always 1 or 2 guests, always on a Tuesday, always room 47. Maya leaned over my shoulder. Tradition, she said, or ritual. The morning of, we took the early train. The town felt different in daylight. Smaller, sharper, as if it had overheard us coming. We didn't go straight to the hill. Instead, we stopped at the antique shop. The woman behind the counter looked up, not surprised. I told you, some histories don't want to be found. This one keeps finding us, I said, placing the key on the counter. Room 47. Her eyes fixed on it for a fraction too long. Then she pushed it back toward me. If you're going up there today, leave before the light changes. Why? Maya asked. Because light can be kind, and then it can stop. We left without buying anything. The hill path started narrow, lined with pines that leaned together like they were conspiring. Halfway up, the air shifted, quieter, heavier. The sound of the town fell away. At the top, the building waited, smaller than I'd imagined. The green paint in the photo was long gone, replaced by gray boards, window shuttered, door locked. A tarnished number plate, 47. The key turned without resistance. Inside, the air smelled of dust and salt. Light seeped through cracks in the shutters, striping the floor. The first room was bare, except for a table against the far wall. On it sat a black and white photograph in a simple frame. Not my parents. A man and a woman I didn't know, smiling towards someone just out of frame. Maya closed a door behind us. Why lock an empty room? I picked up the photo. On the back, in the same careful handwriting as my note, "You're not the first." A floorboard creaked in the next room. Not the polite creak of settling wood, the deliberate weight of someone choosing to stand where you can hear it. We turned toward the sound. A man stood in the doorway. Same cap as the neighbor described, same stillness as the shadow that had followed us. "You brought it," he said, eyes on the envelope in my hand. "What is it to you?" I asked. "Proof and an invitation." Maya stepped between us. "For what?" He smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. "Tuesdays are for the ones who remember and for the ones we decide to let remember." He nodded at the table. "Put it there." I didn't move. Neither did Maya. The man's smile thinned. "If you keep it, you'll end up on the wall." I glanced at the photograph in my hand, at the couple smiling forever towards something they could see and I couldn't. "Show me what's upstairs," I said. The man considered, then stepped aside. "It's your Tuesday." The stairs complained once, then held. The man went first and stopped at the top like he was listening for someone I couldn't hear. Room 47 waited at the end of a short hall. The brass tag matched the key in my pocket. He didn't unlock it. He pushed. The door gave with a practiced sigh. Inside, a square room, window shuttered from outside, light slicing in through seams, a tripod with an old body and a new lens, a chair set on a chalk X. On the table, a metronome, a cable release, a box of gloves. Maya stayed by the door. I stepped in and felt the room close around us. "You take pictures of strangers on Tuesdays?" "We invite people to take their own. We make sure they remember." "Remember what?" "That they chose." Drawers lined the wall, brass tabs, thin labels. I slid one open, photographs in paper sleeves, faces with the same almost smile, bodies angled toward a place just off the frame. Some alone, some in twos, dates in the corner. Always a Tuesday. I found my parents too easily. My mother's hand on my father's arm, sunlight turning her hair to gold. On the back, TUES, S-Vale, 2, 47. Beneath in pencil, copied with last month's date. I said you had the original. He said, "We keep originals. Copies go out when it's time for..." "Time for what?" Maya asked. "For the next person who thinks they're starting something." He met my eyes. "You're not the first." Another drawer, negatives hanging in rows. In one strip, my parents again. The next frame, a second later, my father's head turning toward the camera as if remembering a name. "Who took them?" "Depends on the decade. The room teaches you. Stand on the X, look toward the place someone stands every time. The rest is repetition." On a small shelf, a ledger, today's date with a blank line. In the name column, a penciled S waited. Room 47. "No," I said. "It doesn't have to be a portrait," he said. "People leave objects, a coat, a key, a sentence on a receipt. The archive remembers both kinds." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Look left? A narrow frame on the wall held a contact sheet. Last row, empty chair. Next image, my mother entering from the left. Next, her eyes passed the camera toward me, like she could see through time. "Why send me anything?" I asked. "Because forgetting makes holes. Holes become stories that don't belong to you. Edits are kinder than erasures." "And the warnings? Don't trust, bring the original. That you?" He shook his head. "Some of us caution, some collect. We don't always agree." "We?" "The ones who keep Tuesdays from becoming lies." I slid my parents' photo back into its sleeve. The paper felt warmer than the room. "If you leave the copy," he said softer now, "the archive closes its circle and lets you go. Keep it, and the room keeps asking." "What if we walk away?" Maya said. "Then someone else tells the ending." Footsteps in the hall. He didn't turn. "She prefers to talk downstairs." "The woman from the shop?" I asked. "The one with endings." I lifted the envelope. The copy inside felt lighter than when I first held it. My phone buzzed again. "You choose how you'll remember, not what happened." "Not tonight," I said to the room, to him, to the ledger with my initial waiting. I put the envelope in my coat and closed the drawer on my parents' names. He stilled the metronome with 2 fingers. The quiet felt like mercy. Downstairs, the front door stood open to a pale sky. The antiques shop woman waited on the threshold, coat buttoned, hands bare. "You've seen enough for a first visit." Her eyes flicked to the envelope. "Bring what was asked for when you mean to stay." "I don't know what the original is," I told her. "That's what Tuesdays are for, to learn whether it's a picture or a person." Outside, fog moved over the hill. A bell argued with the hour. Maya slipped her arm through mine the way my mother once did and steered me toward the path. At the curve, I checked my phone one more time. A final message waited without a number, as if the room itself had found a way to text. "Next Tuesday, room 47, bring the original." I typed nothing. We walked until the building disappeared and the day pretended to be ordinary again.